and Bursar of the college, Dr. KALEIDOSCOPIC, dear Dr. Gautam, colleagues from the Department of Defense and Strategic Studies, my colleagues from the other departments, staff, and most importantly, beloved students. A hearty morning to you all. It gives me immense pleasure to stand before you all and to say a few words and to reflect on the book of Dr. Mohan Raju. I am very fortunate enough to have been invited to this hallowed portals of this esteemed institution, the great Buddhist College. Having said that, I shall also congratulate the author today for bringing out a seminal work on capitalism. He brings about globalization and deglobalization, which I will be reflecting on in a while. So congratulations, Dr. Mohan Raju sir. Writing a book, of course, is a big deal. But more than that, publicizing the book is what is important. It has to reach for the wider dissemination of the audience, for the wider dissemination of the scholars. As an institution, the Buddhist College here, especially the Department of Defense and Strategic Studies, I wish to congratulate Professor Uthamkumar and his colleagues for having brought out this book launch here. Congratulations to college and to the department especially. The distinguished guests are here, very senior people are here, their time is very, very precious. But I would like to record a few things here, especially about the book. I have been asked to read. Thanks for the confidence that you had in me and wanting me to read the book and reflect on it. So first I would like to say a few words of conclusion and then probably I will go to the book. How did I feel when I read the book? It talks about, the title of the book is Kaleidoscopic Capitalism, Globalization and Deglobalization. Let me tell you, my dear friends, the students here, it is a seminal contribution to the knowledge, a seminal contribution to the epistemic wisdom that is already available. It is an original work that has been carried out by Dr. Mohan Raju. It is absolutely stimulating, it is engaging, it is captivating, it is thought-provoking, and it is very, very insightful and quite knowledgeable. The reason why I say this with conviction, and I say this, you would be, I'm sure, in a position to understand why do I say this. I have been a student of security studies, strategic studies, like Professor Uthamkumar and Professor Gautam and others. We get to study international political economy. The author, in his preface, he gives the pivot to economy. He says, whether it is polity, whether it is society, whether it is security, let there be anything, the important fabric, the core of everything is economics. That is how he roots, that is how he gives the pivot to this entire book. It is absolutely agreeable. You may think that it is no big deal, but the way in which he has brought out is absolutely fascinating. So let me very quickly comment on it and then I will come to the book. I want to tell you, it is a must-read book for all students of international relations, strategic studies, political science, economics, and other social science disciplines, and also the various other disciplines, because today when we talk about international relations, it refers to everybody, be it a commerce student or a scientist. We all become truly international today. So in that aspect, I would say that it is a must read, it's an essential reader. So let me, sir, assure you that I am making this a compulsory reading for the students of Defense and Strategic Studies at the University of Madras. And I also wish to recommend or to suggest Professor Thirumaran and Professor Gautam here that let these children study this book, because it completely gives a very, very different perspective, very fresh perspective, very new insight, which is not there out, because we all as students of security studies get to read something else. So I will come back to that. So having said that, it is a must-read book. The organization of the book is excellent, the way in which it has been organized, from cover to cover. I shall appreciate that. I shall appreciate the author and also the publisher. The publisher has to be recognized, Omega Book World. I don't know whether there are any representatives from the publisher here, but they need to be commended for a good job that they have done. When I was sharing with the author here that this book is unputdownable, I happened to read this in 2 days. You know, when we had this August 15th, 16th and 17th, I was able to read. It is an unputdownable read for me personally, because I was able to connect with the book. I was able to connect with the author. I told him that I could see the reflection of the persona, the author, in the book. So the book has life. Let me tell you, the book has life. I don't know whether you will be able to understand what I say now, especially the younger one, but it has life. The language that has been used in the book is very lucid. We are able to comprehend what you are trying to communicate, because most of the times, what happens, these concepts, whatever concept it is, you talk about globalization, deglobalization, capitalism, various aspects of capitalism, all these are at times abstract, at times ambiguous. But here, the author has simplified and has cleared those ambiguities. Unambiguously he has constructed. So the construction of each and every sentence here is very meticulous, very systematic, and is meant for all readers of all ages. It is not meant only for a student of strategic studies, it is also meant for a practitioner. So that is the way in which you have written. So clarity of thought, clarity of mind is very clearly reflecting on the book. So language is absolutely fabulous. And it is very, very easy to comprehend. We will be able to understand what it is, because sometimes sometimes when you get to read a book, you go astray without trying to understand, taking dictionaries here and there. Of course, you may use dictionaries for some, but then the way in which you have brought out is absolutely easy for comprehension. And I would like to only highlight a few key aspects of this. Let me tell you, my dear friends, as students of strategic studies, we all have studied international political economy. So, without the international political economy, there is no IR, there is no strategy. Today we are talking about trade war. What the US President Trump has, imposed on us, 50% trade, just because we try to buy oil from Russia. It is nothing but, it is not a diplomatic move. I would say it is a war. It is a trade war which is happening. Trade war has been happening for long. It's been happening with Australia and that of China. Where Australian goods are moving to China, it is not being cleared. The containers are not being cleared by the Chinese. So such is the kind of a trade war that we are talking about. It all boils down to economy at the end of the day. It is all economy at the end of the day, which is very, very important. So we study mercantilism. In mercantilism, we study various aspects of mercantilism. Malevolent mercantilism, which is very, very aggressive, that you are trying to talk about. Very aggressive mercantilism. Laissez-faire is absolutely another concept. Free trade. We have the free trade. But we have signed free trade agreements with many countries. But look at what is happening. I was sharing this with the author. President Barack Obama signed something called a Trans-Pacific Partnership with that of United States of America, with that of larger countries. But here, the gentleman who succeeded him, Mr. Trump, he suspended Trans-Pacific Partnership. India has been trying to bring about a regional comprehensive economic partnership with that of ASEAN and other countries, but China played a spoil sport. We were unable to sign, regional comprehensive economic partnership. India has been roped into nuclear supplier group, but India has not been permitted into Asia Pacific Economic Cooperation, APEC. We have not been given entry into APEC. Why? These are all reflections of various aspects of capitalism that the author has very rightly brought in. That is why he calls it kaleidoscopic. I have been trying to do a little bit of a research. How come this gentleman thought about kaleidoscopic? Is there a kaleidoscopic capitalism already exists? Has he borrowed the term from some place? Or is it his thought? I was just wondering, and I was trying to do some research. Then later I deciphered that it is his own idea. Because when you look at the kaleidoscope, I don't know how many of you have looked at, we all as younger children, we have enjoyed kaleidoscopes. But when you look at how it changes, how it adapts itself with the colors, with the figures, with everything, and how capitalism has been adapting itself in very many ways, innovating itself in very many avatars that he is talking about. He is using the term avatar there in the book, and he tries to portray how this capitalism has played, against the humanity. So, one is, the root of this is truly core is economy, and it is deeply rooted in humanity. That is what author Dr. Mohan Razu has been trying to bring about. Because when we talk about assertions, when we talk about territorialities, when we talk about sovereignty issues, we don't much talk about humanity. Today, humanity is facing a big crisis. I'm sure Bishop would agree with me, Dr. Mohan Razu would agree with me. What is happening in Russia and Ukraine, you are getting to see. What is happening in Gaza and Israel, we are getting to see. But what we are not getting to see, there are lots of people, innocent civilians, young women, children, they get affected. We are able to see only these two bigger pictures. We get lost in other things because we don't see what is called an asymmetric conflict which is going on in different parts of the country, different parts of the world. Everywhere, be it Latin America, to Africa, to Asia, to that of Sub-Saharan Africa, where not every place there is an asymmetric conflict which is going on. Unfortunately, it doesn't get reported. See, the very fact that the world did not understand terrorism, let me tell you, it was only after 9/11 happened the world understood terrorism. But India has been facing the scourge of terrorism for long. No one understood it. But only when America suffered in 9/11, then George Bush said either you are with us or you are against us. Then people realized the scourge of terrorism. Suddenly terrorism caught mind. So look at what is happening. So he's brought beautifully captured the various aspects of capitalism in very many ways, and he's trying to tell us what has it contributed and how deglobalization is being taking place today, how globalization occurred and what happens today. So he is captured. So what I understand from what I read, Dr. Mohan Razu, from his early days, from 1960s onwards, he's been a very, very keen watcher of international affairs and world politics. He's been looking at it, and he's simply a watcher, he's also a thinker. He's been dwelling upon it for a long time. His thought has always been there. He's restless. I can see the restlessness of the author, which is reflecting here. It is very important that we need to be restless when we see atrocities that are taking place in the society. You can't stay calm, you can't stay quiet. Even if you stay calm, there has to be an uneasy calm. That is the way in which I would probably look at it. So the understanding of world affairs of the author is absolutely fascinating, because he takes it up from World War II to that of present. What has he not included? Whatever that has happened 2 days back, 3 days back, only that much. Otherwise, he has absolutely covered up until 2025. And the way in which he uses the examples, for every concept, examples are really, really worth reading. My dear friends, I would suggest you to lay hands on this book, sit calmly and quietly someplace, try to grab, the book and try to read what it says. So, maximization, he expresses it in his own way in economic terms. Let me tell you, the part of a statecraft, not only economy, including military and all other aspects. We talk about comprehensive national power today. The power that we are talking about is comprehensive national power. My friends will be able to understand. Within the larger ambit of comprehensive national power, economy plays the major role. Second only is military. Earlier at one point in time, militaries were dominating because history is replete with wars. But today, it is not so anymore. We have asymmetric threats, asymmetric conflicts. But the maximization of power is what the author has brought about and how it is being maximized. So, he very clearly, beautifully explains two things. One is unlimited wants, because your wants, is something that it is never ending and ever continuing wants, and unsatiable or insatiable desire. You want to keep amassing everything, irrespective of whether you need something or you don't need anything. So which continues. So all this, how all these maximization efforts of these countries, the so-called capitalist world, has put pressure on the other, because he very beautifully describes, he divides the world into two parts. One is the global north and the other one is global south. We belong to the global south, which was called the third world at one point in time. And the others were, at one point in time, Europe was the world. Europe was everything, because Europe reflected. You and I talk in English today. It's because of them, because of the colonization that happened. So, he very beautifully distinguishes between the global north and global south, and what global north has been doing all these years, for ages, and how global south has been, suffering. So, that is what he has very beautifully captured. There is something called systems theory of Immanuel Wallerstein. There is something called core and periphery. There is something called buffer actors. Core gives a pressure and periphery is something that is getting affected, and in between we are all buffers, like India, China, Brazil, we are all buffers. So, he has beautifully captured the systems theory and he's made it very relevant for today, and he presents it in his own way. And he talks about the different other ramifications and consequences and the dangers of the capitalized world, the way in which it has been portrayed, because capitalism itself need not be dangerous, but the way in which capitalism has been utilized, has been seen, has been perceived, has been reflected upon, has been used, was dangerous. Because some of the people who have been, I want you all to study, if you want to read. There is something called an animal farm. I would suggest Dr. Uthamkumar and Dr. Gautam. There is a beautiful book called Animal Farm, which is only 90 pages, written by George Orwell, an India-born author, an English author. Or what you can do is, you can probably, there is this animation which is available in the internet. Sometimes in a class, you can ask children to see the animal farm. The animal farm is beautifully described how capitalism, how communism, which became a counterpoint to that of capitalism, how it gained momentum, and later what were the ills of everything. So all that you can see for yourself. So the adverse impact of the capitalism has been very beautifully captured in this book. He talks about, the author brings about Islamophobia, xenophobia, racism, migration, all this. Yes, sir, I myself a witness to incidents of racism in different countries. In United Kingdom, there is a subtle racism which is going on even today when they look at the subcontinental people. I was there in Australia as Australia India Council Fellow when the racism was very high against especially Indians. You know? So you can't rule out that racism is not happening. Racism is there, but probably in its own subtlety. So racism is something that we have to think about. How capitalism has contributed to it. My dear friends, you would all be traveling tomorrow. We are all global citizens today. We will all be traveling. So you have to be very careful as to how it is. So this book gives you how to, be careful. Because see, when somebody tells you something, you have to be reading between lines, which is very, very important. And another beautiful thing that the author has captured is about arms race. Today we talk about conflicts, numerous conflicts that are there. How conflicts take place without arms and ammunition. We talk about air defense systems, we talk about many other things. So how capitalism has contributed to the arms race is something that is very, very vividly and beautifully captured in the book. Let me tell you, my dear friends, let me tell you this. We signed something called Nuclear Non-Proliferation Treaty in 1968. And there is something called Comprehensive Test Ban Treaty in 1996. And the Comprehensive Test Ban Treaty has not seen the light of the day because the United States of America, as a country which signed the Comprehensive Test Ban Treaty, did not ratify the treaty at all. So which means it has not come into effect even today. So look at what. So which means they want to keep the option open of testing the nuclear weapons. Nobody knows what would happen tomorrow. Tomorrow is another day. When we talk about arms race, it is not only weapons of mass destruction. It is about small arms, which we need to be careful. Small arms is a big business today. I mean, when you talk about economy, arms invariably come into the picture. Kickbacks invariably come into the picture. We all remember Bofors. The entire senior people would remember studying about Bofors at a younger age and how it all resulted in kickbacks. So arms race is something that we need to be looking at. So he's been covering all such aspects. Another most important, he talks about ecology. How has it impacted on ecology? So ecocentrism, as we call it. So ecological catastrophe, how has it been contributing is something that the author has very beautifully brought in. And at the end of the day, my dear friends, what the author wants to communicate, I don't want to hold you back, I have so much to say because I was having this dilemma after reading this book and I was sharing this with the author and of course my dear friend Professor Uthamkumar. I have been given this book, I read the entire book, but I don't know what to comment on. What am I going to choose, what am I going to leave? That itself is a dilemma for me because I want to say everything about this book, which is very, very fascinating. But unfortunately, I won't be able to do that because time is very precious for all of you. But let me tell you, my dear friends, it is rooted in people's welfare. He talks about welfare, he talks about equality, he talks about equanimity, liberty, freedom, peace, prosperity. That is what the author at the end of the day preaches. Irrespective of whichever country it is, he says, increasing nationalism, increasing assertions of nationalism, increasing assertions of sovereignty or territorial integrity, increasing conflicts, it is not going to help humanity in any manner. So he advises the leaders to behave in a fashion that would help the larger society, the humanity of the world, which is something that is beautiful. I used to read about Sarvapalli Radhakrishnan, who has a long association with the Woolies College, Vellore here. Sarvapalli Radhakrishnan, because I have read a lot about Sarvapalli Radhakrishnan's primary sources, which I have taken from John F. Kennedy Library and other libraries of the United States of America, all primary documents. The way in which Sarvapalli Radhakrishnan, the great philosopher, went about teaching the world leaders. This book teaches all of us. Let me tell you, my dear friends. So, and he has given his own way forward. How can we look at? Are we going to subscribe to this now? Are we going to reform the system? How are we going to take? So the author, in his own right, has drawn his conclusions and he has also given supplementary documents for that. And it is for us as students of security studies or economics as international politics, we need to study and we need to bring about our own conclusions. If we have a point, if we can see, he has provided a thesis for this. If we can provide another thesis for it, it need not be an antithesis, it can be a supplementary thesis. Or bring about a synthesis at some point in time, it would be fantastic. So, let me commend the author, Dr. Mohan Rao, for having brought out a very, very pioneering work, very thought-provoking work on kaleidoscopic capitalism. Sir, congratulations to you. Once again, it was absolutely mesmerizing. One felt like reading books. One reading may not be enough. One should read again and again.